Hello and welcome back to the 5 of 9 cast, the official podcast of Warwickshire's new and young Mason Club. I'm James. Sadly, Sean can't be with us this time, but I'm very happy to be joined by my good friend and brother, Richard. How's it going, Richard?
Yeah, great. I'm really excited to be back again, and I'm really interested with our new special guest.
Yeah, I think it's going to be absolutely fascinating. I can't wait to get into it. Every episode of the 5 of 9 cast is focused around a particular topic where we sit down with special guests to get into the detail and explore Freemasonry from different angles, with a keen eye on the perspectives of new and young members. Originally, this episode was going to be focused around fathers and sons in Freemasonry together. Unfortunately, our special guests weren't available today, so we've moved that episode to later in the series, and instead, we've brought another really important topic to the forefront: women, specifically women Freemasons. Do women join female Freemasonry for the same reasons men do? Do they get the same experience? And what would they like the wider world to know about them? Before we get into all of that and more, it's been a few weeks since we last got together for our premiere episode. So Richard, what have you been up to?
I've actually been doing my daily advancement in Masonic knowledge and have bought some books that have been recommended to me from our brothers' Masonic podcast. Shout out to our brothers.
Whoop whoop.
And I've bought the Masonic Etiquette Today.
That's the book by Graham Redmond, isn't it, I think?
Yeah. Apparently, it's the Bible for lodge secretaries, which I'm very much looking forward to. So as being a worshipful master in my lodge at the moment, nothing gets on my goat more than when I'm looking down a summons list and not quite sure what to say, and then somebody jumps up, probably we should have done this in the LOI, but hey, and tells me as the master what I need to say to get this ballot or whatever it is that we're doing at the time done. So I'm really looking forward to actually having a reference book to look into. So I had that, and then I think I ended up buying the explanation of the 3 degrees, the lectures on the 3 degrees, which is supposed to be very fascinating. It's the why we do.
Is that the green book?
Yes. I've ordered it today, so I'm looking forward to seeing what it's all about. Yeah, finding out if there's anything in there that I've missed.
It's one of those things, the explanation of the 3 degrees, that green book, that you never really see demonstrated. I think I saw it once done, the 1st degree lecture at the Warwickshire Installed Masters Lodge. And it was done by the New and Young Masons Club of, I think it was Derbyshire, maybe a couple of years ago, way before COVID. And it was absolutely fascinating because there's elements of the ritual in there, but it gives you a really great insight into the meaning of the ceremony that you've just been through. So yeah, I can definitely recommend that. You'll enjoy that.
Yeah, well, I just thought as well, we are doing a 3rd degree and we've got a few entered apprentices. When they get kicked out, if we send them out with a fairly experienced past master, they can sit and at least they can do something a bit more productive than just sit outside the lodge.
Mentoring in action.
Pathways.
Absolutely. Plug.
And finally, I got the emulation working today, which was written by the Lodge of Emulation. So again, I think really useful. Although we've got the blue books, it's really interesting, I think, to look at what it's supposed to be as opposed to some traditions that may be creeping in, which is really interesting. We were having a conversation in our lodge that one of the older guys, he's got either written down or has done a lot of the way that as Alma Mater Lodge, our traditions that may have been lost over time. But then surely these traditions are wrong. But are they?
I think traditions are just mistakes which stick, but they are important to the lodges. The Emulation Lodge of Improvement as well, for those listening that don't know, they do give out these silver matchboxes, which are very rare.
I've heard about these.
And essentially what you have to do to get one is you have to perform the ceremony as it's written in the book. And for those of you that have got a copy of the blue book, you will see that a lot of the work in there is actually supposed to be done by the worshipful master. But rightly so, we encourage people to split it up. Well, in the Emulation Lodge of Improvement, you actually have to do the ceremony as it's in the book. So all of those pits that are the worshipful master, you have to do that.
That's a charge included, isn't it?
Everything.
Oof.
And to get the silver matchbox, you have to get it absolutely word perfect, not a single word out of place. I have never seen a silver matchbox. There is a vicious rumour going around that there's a few floating around in the province, and you get scratches on them. If you do one ceremony, you get 1 scratch. 2, you get 2.
I've heard this, yeah.
Can you imagine having 4 scratches if you include the installation ceremony on your matchbox? I mean, that is an aspiration. I don't know if anybody's ever got one. I'm sure they have. Perhaps Graham Redmond himself, the man himself, the legend.
Tweet us in.
Absolutely. But yeah, that's a really fascinating book. I'd love to borrow that off you, actually.
Yeah, as soon as I get them. I think I've got one or two other ones that are about sort of loose speech writing or speech making and things. So I thought it'd be quite good to have a few things lined up in the arsenal just in case I get tapped on the shoulder as a visiting officer, to have a something ready than just having to do it on the cuff at the last second.
So what I've been up to since we last got together is I've been appointed as a visiting officer, which I'm really, thank you very much, really excited to do that. Don't really have a great deal of understanding of what I've got to do just yet, but I went to the visiting officers dinner at Knoll a few weeks ago, met my SVO and the group chairman, so really looking forward to getting involved with the lodges and seeing from a provincial level how we can best support them.
Yeah, it's been interesting, those ones. I remember when I first joined Freemasonry, and I always remember back to the days of province are visiting, and we've got our visiting officer attending, and everyone getting really, you could tell the mood of the lodge completely changed when they were there. And then I think over the years, we had a visiting officer, a guy called Alan Ellis, who unfortunately passed away not too long ago, but he was lovely. And as a provincial visiting officer, fantastic. And it would completely change the dynamic of when province were coming to visit.
Yeah, really looking forward to getting involved with that. Can't wait. And then, of course, we'll bring this up later in the news, but I was at the 5 of 9 social event with your good self on...
It was a very good day.
It was amazing. Saturday the 16th, went down to London. Quite a warm day. I don't usually go around Grand Lodge dressed in a casual Hawaiian shirt and shorts, but it was very
lovely.
Thank you very much. It looked quite warm outside. It felt quite warm, but that was great. A walking tour of London's Masonic history. We'll talk about it more later in the news, but absolutely fascinating. But while I was down there, I did get, let's say, Masonically volunteered to perform a full third degree ceremony for a good friend of mine who is being raised at the University of Birmingham Lodge. And it's a ceremony that I've done before, but not for quite a long time since I was in the chair. So as with all of these things, good Masonic volunteering came to the forefront. I think I was volunteered to do it. But actually, do you know what? In all seriousness, really delighted to do it. This is a guy that I have known for probably 10 years. And to see him,
so much more special.
I went to his initiation, I went to his passing, and to have the opportunity to do his third degree, I cannot wait to do it. But I now need to start swatting up again on the blue book.
How long have you got?
I think I've got about 3 months. So I've got sufficient time. But for anybody listening who has tried to learn a big piece of work like that, trying to fit it in around work and everything else, it can be a challenge, but bring it on.
Yeah, I think we've got a third in November, and with me being the master, but conveniently it's past masters night that night. So that's been passed over.
That's an easy cop out. And again, for those listening, a past masters night, right, is where you get the previous worshipful masters from previous years that are no longer in office, maybe their secretary or treasurer. You give them an opportunity to come out onto the floor for a night and do some of the ceremonial. Pathways, absolutely. You see some great standards, you see some interesting standards, but it's always a good night, I think, for the health of the lodge. Right, so that's what we've been up to. Let's get into the episode. This episode is going to be fascinating. It's very easy when we interview a member of the United Grand Lodge of England to know that we've got that shared experience. But with female Freemasonry, we're just as curious as the public, and we want to dive into it with all of our buzzing questions. However, before we do that, let's catch up with the latest Warwickshire Masonic news with Richard.
Freemasons Hall. On Saturday the 16th of July, the 5 of 9 Club travelled to Freemasons Hall in London for a very unique and very warm social day out. Starting with a coach trip from Birmingham, members arrived at Freemasons Hall and experienced a guided tour of the United Grand Lodge of England. Members were guided through the Masonic Peace Memorial, Grand Temple, Egyptian Temple, and the Museum of Freemasonry, where our own 5 of 9 tie is on proud display front and centre. Following the tour, members headed to the Hercules Pillars for lunch before undertaking a truly fascinating walking tour of London's Masonic history, including the incredible Masonic connections to the solving of some of London's most infamous crimes. Worshipful Brother Mike Neville was our tour guide and provided unique insight into the famous faces and their connections to Freemasonry, including Lord Nelson, Benjamin Franklin, and others. Charity Wing Walk. Have you ever felt the need to be on the outside of a perfectly serviceable aircraft during flight? Us neither. But this month, Worshipful Brother Bernard and Worshipful Brother Doug from Square Wheels Lodge did just that. Undertaking a wing walk on a traditional biplane, they each took turns to experience the once-in-a-lifetime thrill of being strapped to the top of the wing and going for a spin. although we suspect it might have been an even greater thrill than their normal pursuits in classic sports cars. The wing walk was completed to raise vital funds for Zoe's Place in Coventry, the only hospice in the Midlands providing respite, palliative and end-of-life care to babies and children up to the age of 5. Bernard and Doug, we salute you. Knoll Food Bank. Outside the Knoll Masonic Centre, the logo reads Community and Charity at Our Heart. The Knoll Masonic Centre has for several years provided much-needed donations to the local food banks, with all goods coming from the kind and generous donation of Freemasons who use the centre. In the latest round of collections, a number of items were donated to Solihull's Helping Hands initiative, who, working with the Solihull Renewal Church, have supported over 400 vulnerable people in their time of need. Any member listening to our podcast today can donate to the food bank by dropping tins, dried goods, and essential toiletries to the Knoll Masonic Centre. For more details, see our website. Provincial delegation to Scotland. Recently, a delegation of Freemasons from across Warwickshire set off for Aberdeen on a journey of repatriation. Why Aberdeen and why repatriation? Well, it's a long story, but suffice it to say, we were visiting a lodge which had written record of every member of the lodge since 1670. This is recorded in what is known as the Mark Book. This book contains the name and marks or signatures of every member of the lodge from 1670, but the lodge itself can trace its history to 1483. With certainty, although there are historical references to Masons in Aberdeen dating from 1272. The purpose of the visit was to return a set of 7 officers' jewels belonging to the Lodge of Aberdeen, which had been in our provincial museum for well over 100 years. The jewels are magnificent and very delicate, made of silver and marked with the city mark of Aberdeen. How they came to be in Warwickshire is a mystery, but when we offered to return them, this offer was accepted with delight. We were given a tour of the lovely old building which has, amongst its many surprises, a royal arch vault under the main building floor. Absolutely magnificent. There was also a wooden chest dating from 1670, which was used to hold the lodge record and alms and needed the keys of the master and 2 wardens to unlock the 3 boxes before it could be opened. The day proper commenced. First, the lodge was opened, then the Provincial Grand Lodge of Aberdeen City was opened, and then the PGM entered in column in true Warwickshire style. After these dedications, the Provincial Grand Master then presented the jewels to the lodge, giving a brief background to how they came to Warwickshire. New and Young Masons Club National Social Event. On the 2nd and 3rd of September, New and Young Masons clubs from across the country will be teaming up for the latest inter-club social event. This time, we're off to Manchester. The 2-day event will start with a lodge meeting to witness a second-degree ceremony, followed by a fun-filled festive board and drinks in the local pub. The following day, there will be a Masonic learning session in the morning, and then it's off to Lane 7 for bowling, darts, arcade games, and finally, a very sophisticated and cultured tour of the local drinking establishments. Anybody interested can find out more on the events page at 5of9club.org.uk. And that's the latest news. James.
Thank you, Richard. Freemasonry has modernised more than ever imaginable in the last decade. Online inquiries, New and Young Masons clubs, media appearances, Facebook, Instagram and Twitter have all helped reset the public's relationship with the craft. One question that members are often asked by the public is on the issue of the United Grand Lodge of England being a single-sex, male-only organisation. Whilst true, this can understandably lead many to conclude that Freemasonry is the preserve of men and is just a club for the boys. However, the reality is far removed from this perception. Female Freemasonry has been meeting in this country for over 100 years and is present across 2 Grand Lodges, the Order of Women Freemasons and the Honourable Fraternity of Ancient Freemasons, or HFAF as it's more commonly known. This podcast is aimed at new and young Freemasons. And so who better to discuss women's Freemasonry with us than a recent initiate? I am delighted to welcome Brother Katrina Marshall to the 5 of 9 cast. Katrina, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, brother. This is great to have a chat with all of you.
It's wonderful to have you on. I should say for the audience, we are recording this on what is the hottest day ever recorded in the UK, and we're in a very small, non-air conditioned studio. How do we all feel at the moment?
Slightly damp, but we're going to press on.
We'll press on, yes.
Press on, yes.
Incredibly warm. So, Katrina, once again, welcome. And we're going to start all at the beginning, as always. What was it originally that attracted you to join and be interested in Freemasonry?
I wish this answer was more noble, but I'm afraid it's not. I am from the most easterly and arguably the most beautiful Caribbean island called Barbados. And Freemasonry is alive and well and strong and, well practiced there. And quite a few of my male friends are quite senior Masons. And whenever something having to do with the lodge came along, that was me without friends on a weekend, because they're dudes and I'm not. So when I moved to the UK, my fascination with Freemasonry, especially with its symbolism, its history, its iconography, and its links to so many things that I didn't realize it was connected to, I became quite a little a secret squirrel, as it were. I read everything about it, but that was about as far as I could go until a very dear friend, who is the Right Worshipful District Grand Master of the District Grand Lodge of Barbados, the Scottish Constitution.
It's good to have friends in high places, clearly.
Well, he's just Brother Andre to me. He's just Andre.
Absolutely.
Shout out to Brother Andre.
Yeah, he's just Andre to me. But he has been a friend and brother through many dangers, and he has been, among others, I have to say, Brother Ricky Redman as well has been a constant support. So one night I was watching a Sky documentary about female Freemasons, and I jumped on the phone. I said, Dre, is this something I can do? Are there any Black people? He said, go online and find out. So he sent me a list of places that I could email, people that I could talk to, questions I could ask. And the long and short of it is I received a phone call one afternoon at work, responding to the email that I had sent to HFAF. And after many, many long and I wouldn't say frustrating, but I'm quite eager when it comes to learning new things. And it took a while, and there was a lot of learning. But I was initiated last November with Brother Daniela Waugh from the Ambassador's Lodge, which we're both members of. And I cannot tell you how moving that ceremony was, but I suppose we'll get to that later. But yes, it started off with, I'm tired of being left out with all my male friends who have fancy things to do and aprons and clothes that jingle and make noise. And secondly, it was a call to serve. I've always been a part of a community of service, whether it's church or volunteering or music or cleaning up beaches or whatever. And having moved around a lot in my youth and gathering a little bit more moss now, I lacked an area where I found some commonality. And Freemasonry has given me that for sure.
And even though the female Freemasonry is separate to male Freemasonry, do you think that it's brought you closer to your friends who are male Freemasons?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, like I said, they were great friends before, but this was an aspect of our friendship that we couldn't discuss. Not that they didn't want to, but as we all know, it's a blow that falls by degrees. And so there are references now in our conversations that have so much more meaning. They don't fall shallow. They're not empty. They're not just nice words anymore. They have great history, they have great meaning, and there are now things that I can share, observations, locations, symbols on places that I had nowhere to send them before. I had no one to express them to before, and no one who would appreciate how I felt about them.
And it's interesting, I think, that you talked there about how you used an online inquiry to kind of get in touch with HFAF, because in our previous episode, we had the provincial membership officer on talking about UGLE's digital marketing campaign and how the process of discovering and joining Freemasonry has evolved in the digital age. And that seems to be really key for you on your journey.
Absolutely. I mean, I did not know. And again, Andre is to be congratulated for this, because along with finding lots about Freemasonry on Instagram and Facebook, he has, in his role, attempted to kind of bring Freemasonry out of the societal shadows. I believe there is still quite a lot that should be just for us. But the ability to have Zoom meetings with women in Russia, in New York, in Hungary, in Italy, here in the UK, the ability to do an online form, just as you would in, any other Zoom meeting or whatever else. And then just simple things like if there's a book I want to read about something about Freemasonry, I can just order it on Amazon. It's not shrouded in the same sort of dusty, hallowed antiquity that one would expect. And I think all the better for it. I mean, the online presence of UGLE is incredibly slick, surprisingly so, and hats off to them. And I want in case anyone's listening, you need a writer, you need a secretary, just call me.
Well, just a little plug for New and Young Masons Clubs. The website was actually co-written, the new website, in consultation with members of New and Young Masons Clubs from around the country. So I think it's been aimed at people of our age to try and get them to understand more and be more connected to Freemasonry.
So you said about you've just joined in November. So have you got an idea on what the next steps are for you yet? Has that been said to you, or?
My worshipful master is constantly trying to hold me back. I'm very much like a puppy who is trying to get let out, but it is for a purpose. And so I am currently in conversation with my mentor, Brother Raj, to get me ready for the next stage. And I am so excited. I cannot wait. Not only because it is the growth in the journey as a Mason, but it is opening further and further doors to be of service. And every time I get impatient with wanting to do more, experience more, I'm reminded that half the point of this journey is to get me in touch with the things that I need to work most on. The ability to humbly serve, the patience to get where I'm going in the time that it's meant to happen, and a membership that will, if all things are equal, stay with me until I pass into the next life. So I'm excited, but humbled and chastened, because that's going to be the constant battle for me. It's going to be the eagerness to move forward and to progress and to bring others with me. As far as I know, I'm one of only 3 brown faces in this lodge. And yeah, that's going to be the constant battle for me.
So you mentioned about your mentor. So what have they sort of said to you then? What are they prepping you for? We're assuming you're going probably for your second degree. Have they said to do anything around it, or?
It has been a combination of what you are meant to do and the way you're meant to start thinking about your Masonic journey, which I think has been interesting. So yes, we are preparing to memorize and get comfortable with what needs to be said and how it needs to be said. But we are also getting comfortable with where the ceremony itself will fit in with a larger Masonic purpose, if we are so moved to, because I was told that Freemasonry is a lot like going to the gym. You get out of it what you put in. But to continue the analogy, if no one shows you how to use the leg press machine, you might never try it.
I mean, personally, I wouldn't know. I'm not a gym goer, but I will take your assurance in that regard.
I promise you the leg press machine will change your life.
I could probably see you in some spandex, though.
That's just your mind running rampant, my friend.
I mean, spandex and sequins, how can you go wrong?
Absolutely. Anyway.
But yeah, I think interesting just going back in with the whole gym idea, and it's interesting that we've got a guy and we're trying to slow him down, and he's desperate to get to the next stage. But I think from us, we all have seen before where you've got people joining in that are so keen and they dive right into it, and then all of a sudden it gets like they've either hit what they wanted to or then disappear. So I think definitely. For me, it's important to enjoy those stages of, especially in the early days.
I mean, we discussed on the last episode with Worshipful Brother Howard that, in my experience, I think yours and Howard's was, we had to wait about 12 months between doing each degree, and to give us that time to get to know what we're doing, understand what we've been through already, learn the questions and answers for the next ceremony. But equally, I do like the idea of being impatient and wanting to know more. And how are you balancing that at the moment?
Very poorly sometimes, I have to admit. I'm going to answer the question by using an analogy. When I used to dance long before, grown up bodies and all the rest of it, and grown up responsibilities, whenever I got stuck on a particular passage or movement, my teacher would tell me, go back to basics, go back to the bar, work on your pliés, work on your rondageons, work on your points, and work on your turnouts. And whenever I get frustrated, I do the same thing with Freemasonry. Go back to why. Why did I join? What was the purpose for me I'm not going to lie, crying a few of the little tears once I had completed the proper ritual for my first degree. Why did you do this? If you go back to your whys each and every time, you will learn to temper yourself in a way that no one externally can temper you for you. And there are interesting and non threatening or dangerous ways to go about feeding that need. There's always a lodge of instruction that you can go to, like always. There's always a Zoom call, a conversation, a WhatsApp chat, a coffee that you can have with someone. If you're lacking that zhuzh, if you're lacking that thing that gives you the joie de vivre of being a Mason, there are places that you can go to feed it without compromising the process and the reason why it is a process that simply takes as long as it takes.
I think that's a really good way of looking at it, actually. And again, one of the things we spoke about last time was sometimes there's a challenge of somebody becomes a Mason, they get 6 or 12 months into it, it kind of washes over them because it is quite an experience going through that initiation.
Ooh,
We've all been through it, absolutely. And maybe they're confused or they don't quite understand it. And I think that's really great advice. I mean, would you agree to say that to somebody who's a bit confused to use those tools?
Oh, for sure, for sure. I think Freemasonry is very much like a banquet. And you walk into a banquet hall and you're like, whoa, do I want the foie gras? Do I want the macaroni pie? Do I want the fried chicken? Do I want the Cornish hen? And if you inhale it all at once, you end up with a dire need for some Alka-Seltzer. Start with what you know, with what you have, with the time that you have, and just nibble your way around the plate. It's all going to be delicious and it'll all be digested in time. But for sure, take it in its stride, because if you're committed to it and you do it right, you're a Mason for life.
Yeah, and I think especially with all of the degrees, there's so many things you can go and research. Just even with, you got the first degree tracing boards, you've got the working tools, you've got the structure of the lodge room before you even get into second, third degrees, side orders, and there's all the esoteric symbolism that you can start to explore even before thinking, well, actually, I just want to do my next level for the sake of taking the next level. That makes sense.
For sure. And the other thing is, if you truly are, and again, I'm not preaching to anyone, I can only speak about my experience, but I remember either just before or just after my initiation, I simply saw lodge symbolism everywhere in ways that I don't think I would have noticed it before. The weekend after my initiation, I was floating on cloud nine. I don't think my feet touched the ground for a week after that. And I was just standing at a train station in Jarrett's Cross in London. And there was a brass statue with the sign that said, "This garden is maintained by such and such lodge." And I don't think I would have noticed that before. There were symbols on the floor of a church where I went to a friend's wedding that, again, I had to kind of nip into the vestry and text someone who knew and go, "Does this mean what I think it means?" He says, "Yes." And then we Googled it. So, yeah, you can... There is always going to be something pulling you to just kind of like gallop forward, but there is a reason why you are being made to wait.
And I think when you're in Masonry, right, you see Masonic symbolism and Masonic people and characters from history everywhere. And we, as we said earlier, went to London Saturday just gone with the 5 of 9 Club, and we had a Masonic walking tour
Jealous
of London.
It was incredible.
It was amazing. And we walked past statues that I've probably walked past 100 times, and there's a square and compass. I've never seen it. Or you go to a police station and you hear the amazing story about how Ronnie Biggs was kind of captured because of information that was shared at a festive board. And you just never would have appreciated that. But once you're inside, you see it everywhere.
My favourite one was the George Washington Bible. So there was I think George Washington was over in America and he was initiating somebody, and they didn't have a Bible to swear him on. So he apparently went over the road. I can't remember the church, St. Paul's, St. Peter's.
I think this was when he was inaugurated as president. They didn't have a Bible,
right?
And they used his Bible.
Yeah. So and then that is the Bible that every president has ever sworn in. But it's all, yeah.
Oh my days, I didn't know that. That's insane.
Every US president has been sworn in on the Bible of the Lodge. that George Washington was a member of.
We're everywhere like air.
Yeah. I mean, that's feeding the conspiracy theorists.
Of course.
But actually, in seriousness, it's all a force for good. Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. There isn't anything about the whole aspect of giving that has missed me when it comes to the whole, the iconography is great, the symbolism is great, but if you are called to serve, we have some work to do. So I'm there for it.
So moving on slightly before we go to our break, I was curious. I think male Freemasonry is quite well known. When you think of Freemasonry, typically the public who they don't know much about us would think it's a men's only organisation. And as I said in the introduction, that can kind of lead people to think that it's a boys' club, it's the preserve of men. How have you found public reaction to female Freemasonry? Have you engaged with anybody you know who's not a female Freemason, not a male Mason, and they've gone, oh my God, I didn't know you could be a lady and a Mason?
Yes, I have. Though I have to admit, I don't share that information freely because honestly, I just can't be bothered with. It's not every day that I have the wherewithal to explain. I've had the range of reactions from the ridiculous to the sublime. One person knelt in front of me, held my hand, and said she would pray for me because all things Freemasonry are of the devil, and that's why the world is going to hell. Another person was so happy for me. She sent me a bouquet of flowers and congratulated me because she knew how happy I was. Someone else said, I didn't know there could be girls, but if you're one, that means it's a good thing because you're cool. So the reaction has been completely mixed. And I'm not going to lie, I'm a little bit smug because there is something really, really special about being a Mason. And then you add that to being, and I know that we're not going here, but it's kind of difficult not to notice that I'm not British and I'm certainly not pink. I'm very brown and very Barbadian. So that super kind of tiny niche of being a female, a woman Freemason, and an immigrant in the UK and being initiated in the UK, it's super, super special. And if you only ever meet one Mason in life and it's me, I'm going to make sure that your experience is a positive one.
I think it's often said that Masonry is a great equalizer and that we all meet on the level. And again, that's one of those things that you only appreciate when you're a part of it. But what's your experience been within female Freemasonry of diversity across membership from different ages and ethnicities and backgrounds?
It's been great. Not just because I have found commonalities, but because I have found differences. It's been great not just because I have been able to engage with a vocabulary that is uniquely female, but because I have also learned that that is a learned experience. In other words, just because we're a bunch of girls doesn't mean that we talk about girly things. Whatever girly things are, it's 2022. We no longer have the luxury, I think, of binary gendered language, but it's taught me that my larger purpose as a Mason doesn't mean I have to be tight friends with everyone, but it has also taught me that the differences is what makes us stronger.
Yeah, and I think, that's one of the great things that builds Freemasonry together is that, you're in a room with people that you probably never would have associated with
that
ever.
Part.
I mean, we're sitting here, the chances of us meeting outside of or in real normal life from our social circles would probably be very unlikely that we would have ever actually met up. But here we are, sat around with one commonality between us all. I think that's the big special thing. Again, like you said, I think people just don't quite get that about Freemasonry.
No, and I think if you have grown up or socialized in your youth in a way that you take a sense of belonging for granted, you don't realize how special it is to have a global family like Masons when you're a bit of a lone wolf like I am. So maybe that's part of it as well.
Loneliness and isolation can affect millions, from the elderly to the young. In older people, loneliness has been proven to contribute to earlier mortality and reduce cognitive ability. The Masonic Charitable Fund, in conjunction with Age UK, are committed to supporting those affected by social isolation and loneliness. As the UK's leading charity supporting the well-being of older people, Age UK has the expertise required to tackle this important issue. With this in mind, the MCF have a partnership with 13 local Age UK branches across England and Wales to deliver individually tailored support to older people going through major life transitions. The programme will improve well-being, increase independence and reduce loneliness. Age UK believes that no one should have no one to turn to. So first and foremost, it's important that people are made to feel that they are not alone. Age UK's telephone and face-to-face befriending services allow them to match older people with volunteers who share similar interests for a regular chat. The network of local Age UK charities also run transport services, lunch clubs, day centres, exercise classes and other social events which give people the chance to get out of the house and meet new people. Through their partnership with the MCF, Age UK were able to launch their Later Life Goals programme in 13 areas across England and Wales, which will support around 10,000 lonely older people. Loneliness is incredibly personal, and it can manifest itself in a number of different ways, so there's no one cause or solution. But if a person is feeling lonely, it's vitally important they remind themselves that they are not alone, because there are lots of people who can talk to them and offer some assistance. Age UK and the MCF's funding will support this vitally important work. You can donate to the Warwickshire 2023 Festival by following the link in the show notes or by searching online for MCF Festival E 2018. We thank you in advance for your support. Let's get back to the show.
Okay, so we are back with Brother Katrina Marshall.
Hey.
So Katrina, I wanted to ask you about your initiation ceremony, which is a truly special moment for anyone, and it stays with you forever. Thinking back to that time, what would you say was your favourite moment? Without giving too much away to our non-Masonic listeners, what was your favourite moment in that ceremony?
It has to be the last bit, the charge after initiation. My initiation was overall one of the most moving evenings of my life. And I'm so pleased that I got to share it with Brother Daniela Waugh. But my favorite part has got to be the charge after initiation. Worshipful Master made sure that we felt welcome. Every word landed in the way it was meant to. I felt emboldened. I felt humbled. I felt challenged. It was a cross between tears and butterflies. And it is not something I will ever forget. I think running a very close second was having a particularly reassuring junior deacon always in my ear, letting me know I was doing well, making sure I felt well guided and supported. Because, you know, it's easy to become both physically and kind of psychologically disoriented. So it was reassuring, but definitely the charge after initiation. And then, you know, Danielle and I just kind of looked over each other and went, girl, we did it. And it was, yeah, there was definitely tears of joy, for sure.
I think the charge after initiation sometimes is the first moment where you as a candidate realise as well that the person delivering it, they're not reading that, they're memorising it.
Holy crap, yeah. The respect I have for anyone who manages to get that ritual work on point is unparalleled. I can only dream of walking in those shoes, but it's pretty special when you get it right.
Yeah, I've just got two things. When you walked into the lodge room, obviously, you know, did you know anyone in there?
Not a soul.
So you just went in completely, and then you said that there was another person you were initiated with?
Yes, my fellow initiate was Brother Daniela Waugh.
And did she know anyone in there?
No.
How did it feel, just the two of you? I mean, do you think it helped that she was there?
Oh, absolutely. I was shaking like a leaf.
Yeah.
Yeah, we went through all of the initial bits together. Brother Raj was there and made sure that we were properly prepared. But so far, we'd only ever spoken on Zoom. And I think because the meetings of the Pale Blue Club were so international, there were pages and pages and pages of people on the Zoom meeting. So I don't actually think Daniela and I spoke a lot before we kind of shared this super special moment together. It was incredibly intimidating, but oh my gosh, was I excited. And when it was done, it was a moment. I'm just going to leave it at that.
Yeah, because in the male Freemasonry, particularly now, there's a lot of resistance against doing double initiations. We were almost talking about doing a triple initiation, but I think the secretary said he thinks there might be something in there that says actually you're only allowed to do two. And in our lodge, there's actually quite a bit of resistance about doing a double initiation.
I think sometimes there can be a feeling, and I'd love your perspective on this, that if you do it as a double initiation, it can ruin the night or it can make it feel less special for you. But I don't think from what you said, that was your experience.
Not even a little bit. I can't imagine having done it alone. I'm sure I would have been fine because everyone is very supportive. But for one thing, Daniela and I are now bonded for life. I don't think she is as excited about that as I am. Hi, Danny. But we're bonded for life. And when it happens in tandem like that, you can literally compare notes line for line, step for step, ritual for ritual. Whereas when you're on your own, it's one step removed. Of course, you can do that with everybody else in the lodge, but it's one step removed because they would have done it historically earlier than you. So I would, of course, be respectful of whatever rules say you can or cannot, but it took nothing away from me to have my initiation with another brother.
Yeah, I mean, funny enough, I think I remember more about my second degree ceremony than I do about my initiation because I did my second as a double second.
Oh, really?
And I remember that a lot more than I do my actual initiation, which brings me on to my next question. So now you're getting ready for your second degree.
Yes, I am.
How are you finding the process of learning the questions, or have you got any methods, or have you found things that work? How are you finding it in general?
We're looking for pro tips here.
Yeah.
Pro tips.
Oh, man. Well, apart from my neighbors thinking I'm completely batty, a few things. I record myself, which is gross. I hate the sound of my own voice. I don't know anybody who likes it, but I record myself with the phrasing of the language that I would want to use on the day in question. I compare, or I use certain symbols in my head to remind myself of what certain things mean. I have a little bit of a photographic memory, so the more difficult passages, I literally just stare at them and repeat them until they are kind of burned in my brain. So that even if there's a gap between what happens in my head and what comes out of my mouth, somewhere in there, my optic nerve will remember when we saw that word. It gets crazier and crazier, I have to admit. There's walking around the house while cooking, saying it. There is reciting it over music that I like to make sure that I'm not easily distracted, because there's nowhere louder than the voices in your own head, kind of thing. Kind of like how what happens at initiation can never be as bad as what you imagine could happen. So I'll talk over music that I like. I'll recite it when I'm painting my nails. But then I will go a couple of days or sometimes even as much as a week without looking at it, because it's a little bit like a muscle. If you kind of overwork it, you end up with fatigue. And what I want is optimal muscle strength.
And have you had the opportunity yet to start learning pieces of the first degree ceremony to deliver in a future ceremony or in a lodge of instruction?
I actually have already delivered a portion for another first degree initiation, which was daunting. Didn't realize how nervous I was going to be. Didn't realize how much responsibility it is when it's just you and the whole lodge turns around and looks at you because it's your turn. I'm not going to guess at which part it was. I should remember, but I don't. That's probably best anyway. But it's a short portion of the apron, I believe, just after a certain aspect where there's a bit of walking.
There's always a bit of walking.
Yeah, we do rack up some miles, don't we? But yeah, it was, again, I was very well supported by other brothers in the lodge, and I don't think I made many mistakes, but it is something that I want to continue working on for sure.
I think as well, with my experience, when you are delivering a piece of ritual, you are naturally quite nervous, and the nerves can really help you focus. For sure,
yeah. I mean, I'm a bit of an adrenaline junkie, and the world of presentation, public speaking, and recording isn't completely new to me. But, as we were saying earlier, there is something healthy about that shot of adrenaline. There is something healthy about helping you focus on the task at hand. And for me, it's also the responsibility of it. I know how special my initiation was, and far be it for me, of all people, a lowly EA, to get a piece of ritual work wrong and ruin the moment for someone else who deserves the same experience I had, if not better.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also think that Freemasonry is probably one of the only organizations when you do public speaking, when you deliver a ritual, where you genuinely know that everybody else in the room that is watching you perform that piece of work is rooting for you.
Absolutely.
And wants you to get it right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a really gratifying feeling when you have that moment, when you complete that piece of ritual and you've done your absolute best of your ability and everyone is slapping their apron or applauding, and it just makes you want to do it even better next time.
For me, it's about, I'm my own competition. So if I got 3 words wrong the last time, I want to get only 1 word wrong this time around. I don't want to lose sight of the purpose of the ritual, but to me, you do it so much respect, you do it so much honor, you do it so much grace by getting it right, that to me, I genuinely believe that if, as we discussed earlier, I take my time, do the things in the time that they are meant to take, and take personal charge of the rituals I'm given, that ritual work is going to be one of my favorite things about Freemasonry, I have to say.
So we're a new and young Masons club, and that was an initiative set up several years ago by the United Grand Lodge to have a club in every province for younger Freemasons or newly initiated Freemasons to kind of come together across lodges and have social events and get to know each other and share their experience, etc. And you referenced earlier about the Pale Blue Club.
Yes.
Talk to us about what that is in women's Freemasonry.
That is a wonderful kind of cabal of interested, interesting, and eager Masons in waiting, or people who are just interested. It was my introduction to Freemasonry. I see it as a gentle little holding pen for those of us who have expressed an interest, have stuck around long enough to be given the Zoom details to the club, become regular faces. And while that's happening in the front, we have quizzes, we have drinks nights, even if they're virtual. We've tried to have coffee, but between COVID, rail strikes, and just life, sometimes it doesn't really work. But so while that's happening in the front end, and the team building is happening in the front end, at the back end, the work of getting people initiated and interviewed continues. So my interview was actually at the end of a work day because I couldn't get back home in time. I shooed the client out of the boardroom and locked the door, went through the process, came out the other end, and then I was a Mason in waiting. And then came the 1.5 year wait for my initiation. But the Pale Blue Club, it's a sweet, soft way of gradually introducing people, women, to Freemasonry. But it's also low-key separating chaff from grain. You can tell really quickly those who, as we discussed earlier, want to achieve what they want to achieve quick and move to the next level as fast as possible, like they're ticking off boxes. There are others who are curious because of what they've heard in the streets. And there are others whose family are all Masons. And whether it's family by blood or family they chose, they want in. And gradually you get to see who is who. And the kind of reward at the end of that is a humble white apron.
I think that's pretty amazing, actually, to do that. And one of the things we've spoken about in the past is it's important to get members into Freemasonry because you want to grow numbers and you want to increase the membership. But I think more importantly than that, it's about getting people in who want to join for the right reasons, people who are going to stay in Freemasonry, people that are going to get the right things from it. And it sounds like from what you've said that the Pale Blue Club almost gives you a taste of that before you come in. Was that your experience of that?
It was. I was aghast at the sheer range and broad range of people, of backgrounds, of languages, of ages, of races, of countries. Something as simple as the backgrounds of places that people were dialing in from. It was an eye into the worlds that they were dialing in from. But more importantly, it gave us just enough of a taste to help us understand what we were in for, what it was not, who we could meet, and inevitably who you could be after the decision to become a Mason.
Something that may be a little bit of a controversial question, but do you ever see a time where potentially Freemasonry could co-op together? I think there are co-op lodges together, but do you think that is becoming more of a norm thing? Or what direction would you as a lady Freemason, or do you pick up anything from within your lodges, though? Any thoughts on joining up with the men? How do you see that?
Look, there's no point in pretending that there are certain aspects of our craft that are entwined with aspects of history that not all of us are particularly proud of. But having said that, and having accepted that if it were not for the progression of Freemasonry, I couldn't be a Mason, Andre couldn't be what he is in Barbados, I still think that for those who choose gendered spaces, and this is 2022, gendered spaces are becoming much more of a fluid concept right now, and that's a great thing. But for those who choose it, especially for an institution as ancient and glorious as Freemasonry, there should still be separate gendered lodges. I wouldn't want to be a part of co-ed lodge. I wouldn't want to intrude on another lodge. And I hope I don't get into trouble for this, but long may it continue.
I think that's a really interesting point to make, actually, because one of the things that sometimes gets thrown at male Freemasonry, UGLE, is you're excluding women. You are deliberately keeping women out of your organisation, and therefore you are an aggressive organisation. So it's absolutely fascinating to hear you on the other side of that as a female Freemason, almost putting the same arguments for why we do want to keep it separately from your side of the fence.
Yeah, I know. And like I said, I am a card-carrying feminist and I have no difficulty defending my principles. However, I do hold a soft spot for history, ritual, and the ability for people to have spaces that they feel belong to them. In the same way that, as much as I think you're lovely, you would probably stick out like a sore thumb at a Notting Hill party where jerk chicken and Jamaica patties are served. And as much as you would be welcome, that's our space, or cultural expression, or nation language, or heart speak, or music. And as much as you would be welcome, we deserve a space. Caribbean immigrants, members of the Caribbean diaspora, we deserve a space where we can be ourselves. I think it's exactly the same thing. Let's socialize with the men, of course. Bring on the whiskey. Let's bring on the festive boards.
Now you're talking.
I mean, like...
Other spirits are available.
I mean, I'm a Caribbean person, so naturally it's about rum for me. But yeah, let's socialize. Let's do more charity work together. Let's have more co-ed podcasts. Let's collaborate more on blogs. Let's bring us more into the 20th century. Let's tweet more. Let's be on Facebook more. But when it comes to the business of the lodge in a proper and regular fashion, let us separate and do what it is we do, because there's a lot of us that hold what happens there among brethren very sacred, and I'm one of them.
I love that balance of those two things there. And we were talking in the break when we were off mic about having social events, and we referenced the social event we had last Saturday and how great it actually would have been to have you guys along for that. Yeah. And I'd love for us to do more of that. There's nothing outside of the temple, outside of the lodge room that we can't do together. Yeah, absolutely.
Especially when there's rum involved. Sorry, that wasn't meant to come out.
There may or may not have been whiskey at 8 a.m.
I mean, I don't see that there's a problem there.
I'm not saying anything, but this particular brother opposite me, Mr. Richard, was seen on the coach to London with some amount of alcohol on both the outward and return journey, but I'm not judging you.
Especially considering that when all things are done in the name of making a joyful noise, one can never argue with that.
Love that. Absolutely love that. So we're coming to the end now, and it's been great to have you, but I just wanted to ask you one final question, which is, if you could summarize or give a pitch or explain to any lady listening to this podcast now why Freemasonry would be a good thing for them to think about, what would you say?
There are several spaces that women are allegedly welcome in. There are several ways of being that women kind of move as a pack. But if you are looking for a collection of women that is quite apart from your 10 a.m. yoga class, your 4 p.m. karate class, your 5 p.m. on Fridays mimosas, your mommy and me jogging classes, your school runs, if you are looking for a combination of women that doesn't fit that mold at all, but yet have a commonality that will last long beyond your lifetime, become a Mason. If you are looking for a home spiritually and psychologically and intellectually, if, like me, you have been a rolling stone for 20 years of your career or more, and you want to know that when you put foot on any part of the world, there's a brethren there who will extend a hand, who will set a place at his table for the stranger, become a female Freemason.
Katrina, it's been fascinating to talk to you today and to hear your story. And on behalf of all Warwickshire Freemasons, we wish you a happy, successful, and fulfilling journey in Freemasonry. Do come back and see us in the future. Brother Katrina Marshall, thank you so much. So there you have it. Women can be Freemasons and join Freemasonry for the same reasons as men. We call each other brother, and we work together to show the public the good works done by Freemasons of all genders. I have to say, I have loved this discussion today, and I hope that we can welcome Katrina back onto the podcast in the future to give us an update on what I think will be an amazing journey for her. Don't forget, you can listen back to this and all future episodes of 5 of 9 Cast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can tweet us at 5 of 9 Club, or by using the hashtag 5 of 9Cast. Please do get in touch. We're on Facebook and Instagram, and you can visit our website at 5of9club.org.uk, where you can join our newsletter and be the very first to hear about new episodes, upcoming social events, and submit your news to us. If you have news from your lodge that you want us to cover on this podcast, let us know. That's it. That's the 5 of 9 Cast. We'll see you next time. Bye.